Welcome to the RotoWire Prospect Podcast, brought to you by the Chalkboard app. Got an amazing show planned today. I've got my friend Brian Slack joining me. For those who don't know, Brian Slack, 2 years ago, you were sweating winning the main event overall title with Dylan White for the first time, and you guys pulled that off. You took it down. Fast forward 2 years, and now I only see you playing Dynasty baseball, Brian Slack. So we're going to talk Dynasty baseball today, and I'm really excited that you're joining me. So why don't you just let people know sort of how that happened, how you became a Dynasty baseball player after being such a great high-stakes player for so
long? That's a tricky question. I kind of fell into this, fell backwards as tends to be the case. I thought I was retired, right? I said I was retired. I went on podcasts. I said I was retired. Then Dylan and I were doing some DCs that he would quarterback in the fall. And by quarterback, I mean he would make the selection and tell me who we got. And then Matt Eddy, I guess, approached him and said, hey, there's an opening in the Devil's Rejects League. And I was like, yeah, that sounds amazing. And let me just sit on the sidelines. I'll watch you do your thing. No harm, no foul. I'm pretty much still retired. I can do my thing. Then the Sunday of the dispersal draft, it was a dispersal draft with DVR. And Dylan's dog had an emergency spinal surgery. This is terrible. But what happened, obviously it's bad for the dog. But then this left me in a spot where I know zero about zero. And so I'm like, okay, I pull up. First thing, I just like pull up your ranks. I think there were some Baseball America ranks I pulled together and then just fired it off with the dispersal draft and kind of never looked. This was late January and kind of never looked back.
It's awesome, man. So it's just Devil's Rejects for you. That's the only league you're running the operations in?
That's right. Yeah, I was in. I've been in a couple before. You got me into that one that I kind of stepped away from when I retired, and so I've been in. This is my third total, but this is obviously the most intense, and it's quite a bit of fun.
So, how did the dispersal draft go in hindsight? I hope I didn't lead you too astray with those dynasty rankings.
Yeah, it was fun. It was great. I think that it was basically just like I'm learning these players on the fly, and it was very fast. It all happened. I think some dispersal drafts might take longer, but this was DVR was ready. He knew his guys obviously, and so I would make my pick. Like I'd take 20 minutes per pick, and then he would instantly just respond with the next guy, and I was like, okay. But it was good. It was a lot of fun, and I think that I just tried to. I think if there was any lessons I had there, it was like, don't get caught up on the roster build, because I know that in my the first time I ever met Dylan was in a dispersal draft, and I had drafted, because I didn't have enough outfielders, I drafted Kevin Pillar to round out my roster over Grayson Rodriguez, and that was something he liked to remind me of. So yeah, I learned that lesson. So I was like, just fill out the roster, don't even worry about the positions, just take the best value that you can find.
Yeah, and so like I said, we're going to be talking all Dynasty today, and I want to set the scene just briefly and let people know sort of how many leagues I'm in, because we've established that Brian's basically focused on Devil's Rejects. It's a 20-team Dynasty league where you keep 28 players from year to year. There's no specific minor league spots, but it is open universe. So I find that in this specific Dynasty league, prospects are maybe less valuable than in your standard Dynasty league where everyone's keeping 20 to 30 prospects year to year, although the top young hitting prospects are always extremely valuable. I'm in Devil's Rejects as well. I'm in 5 other Dynasty leagues and 24 leagues that I would call redraft or redraft adjacent. So 30 leagues for me this year, way too many. Going to probably get it under 20 next year. So that'll definitely play a role when we're talking about just our Dynasty behavior, trade habits, et cetera. We're coming from kind of different vantage points in terms of our amount of teams we're running. But Brian, you set up this really kind of cool way of looking at Dynasty teams, specifically in the Devil's Rejects leagues, where you went through and you calculated each team's current value, essentially using the projection system Oopsie, Jordan Rosenblum's great projection system. And then you also calculated each team's franchise value, which was more sort of a long-term total amount of value on each roster. Do you want to kind of explain how you did that and sort of how you're using that?
Sure. The idea is like, kind of when you're starting with just a team, you're like, how competitive is this team, right? And so I think the one thing to do was just, take a present value, just looking at all the rosters and kind of using, oopsie, like how competitive am I going to be this year? And so I did that for all the rosters and kind of found that we were, maybe in the 6th or 7th spot, in terms of the rankings. And there were some really good teams, obviously a lot of really good owners in this league. Then for I think the more important value, the thing that I was kind of focused on was kind of what I'll refer to as the franchise value. It's just, basically assigning a dollar value to each player. And I did that just, what I did was that I took your ranks. Obviously, James, I'm very dependent on your ranks, so please keep those coming. I took your ranks and gave them about like a 50% weight. And then I took some other sources, Baseball America being one, and kind of sorted them all, kind of came up with an aggregate list of just a top 500 or top like 350 players, right? Ranked them 1, 2 to 350 using that kind of aggregated system. And then just I kind of overlaid the, this is not scientific. Somebody with a math degree is going to be like, this guy's way off his rocker. But I took the NFBC auction values and just, just sorted those highest to lowest, copied and pasted those on top. So like my highest rate guy was whatever the highest, auction value was. Right. And so then just kind of sorted from there, made some manual adjustments based on, kind of the way I thought the league dynamics were a little bit. And it's a little bit faulty because it's not accurate that like in an auction, you're like a $50 guy, like, Juan Soto or something you're not going to be able to trade it for a couple of the $25 guys. But I thought it was a kind of a close approximation for like, okay, where am I in this whole thing? And so I thought that was really helpful to kind of like set the stage and say, where are we? How deep, how far away are we? And then like, mainly is like, should we be trading away some of our prospects to kind of push in this year a little bit? So, that was kind of the general, and then I would update that throughout the year. And I haven't done that in a few months because I've been into some fantasy football lately.
Yeah, we had to wait to do this pod till Brian had completed all his fantasy football drafts. He's more of a fantasy football player these days.
Who knew? Who saw that coming? I did not see that coming. But
if I just keep calling you a fantasy football player, maybe you'll get back into fantasy baseball.
That's right. Go with me. That's right.
So like I want to look at the current value, franchise value stuff a bit more, because this is always just the, if you're in a dynasty league, it's great if you just have the best team or one of the top 2 or 3 teams. That's a great position to be in. Obviously, most teams are not in that position. You're either at the bottom of the standings or the middle of the standings. So I know the image you showed me of the current and the franchise, you guys were doing better in the current than in the franchise. What have you kind of evaluated your team, or like what have you done in terms of evaluating your team and sort of seeing like, okay, where do we got to go from here in this dynasty league? Like, you're not going to win the league this year, obviously. Are you trying to contend next year? Have you decided that's not realistic either? Like, how are you kind of mapping things out? Just looking at where you stand right now.
Mm-hmm. I think it was, there were so many teams, especially when you put the present value and you see just how many teams there are. Like, there's always, and I wanted to do this, was leave a, kind of account for all like possible outcomes, right? Like there was a scenario where we just stayed really healthy. We got some really good pickups in the draft, right? The preseason draft, and then just kind of hit on some guys, Yeah. And there's this scenario where we're very competitive, and some of our prospects kind of percolate, and then we're able to deal those off. Some injuries to the top teams, and you're able to kind of make a run. So I didn't want to like close that avenue off, but I did want to like say that it was like acknowledge that it was like a 5%, 10% shot anyway. So rather than even doing it before the draft, which I think there's some merit to, right? To like even just before the season starts, you're not going to get there, like trade some of those guys that are in full-time playing spots to start the year and then get that future value. But we didn't do that. I was like, all right, let's plus it's also fun. It's like, let's fill out a roster. Let's trade for MJ Melendez and see what happens. And
talk about fun.
Do what?
Talk about fun.
Exactly. That very much summarizes it. But yeah, so we kind of just made a little run, and then we actually started off, for the first couple months pretty well. I think we were in like third or fourth at one juncture, and still Dylan was in the background running projections, telling us this wasn't sustainable. I was I was in the background saying our future value still isn't what it needs to be to really make this a run. So
right.
Then we kind of started to make some trades from there.
Right. So you evaluated that this was not the year to push your chips in. Is that safe to say, like kind of mid-season you sort of evaluated that?
Yeah, that's fair. But it's always, and that's the way I like to do it. Is to kind of leave that option open. You never know. Like a couple of good trades, and like you're the one that trades for, I don't know, Carlos Rodon, Ben Rice before it happens, and it's like, okay, all of a sudden, all the valuations were really can kind of throw them out the window. But yeah, I think that we like to kind of straddle that line, and so we did that for the first few months actually. Yeah.
So is there an example, either like in the Devil's Rejects League currently, or just sort of, if you were looking at, say, like you want to be top X in current value and top X in franchise value, like if you're trying to figure out, do I have the team where I can actually push in and it's really going to make sense and it's not going to be something I regret like 6 months from now? Like what does that kind of look like? Is it sort of a little bit more franchise value than current value, and then you push the franchise in and shoot up the current value? Or is it kind of really high current value and just, pretty good franchise value and you just cash it all out? Like what does that kind of look like to you? Are you trying to get, like, what does it look like for a team that should be looking to push in, I guess? Is that just too broad of a question?
It's kind of feel, but I would lean more towards the future value, because once you decide that your future value, when like you look at what your current team is, but your future value is really competitive, top 3, 4, like, and I did some conditional formatting on my sheet, so you can see there were 4 teams really that were really, really good, and it's like if you're in that mix with the future value, and obviously people approach it differently. Some people are just like, it's about the banner this year, and some people are just more like, I'm just going to build the juggernaut. I'm going to be slow and steady. If I come in second or third this year, I'll just kind of set, a little bit higher next year, and then eventually be winning for several years. So so I guess your answer is probably depends on like your personality, like how important winning is. Right. And then if you're willing to be like, okay, this might set me back a year or two. And, I think at that point you kind of, but either way, I think having that, if you don't have the future value, you're then trading, what little, prospects and stuff you have for current value. And then it's just not going to get you there. And then you're really
then you're kind of just stuck in the middle of the league. You're sort of you're not moving up, and then then you almost feel like obligated to like get the next good prospect you find to like trade them right away too. And like, so what do you think about yourself? What do you think, like, are you the type of person that if you felt like you could take the league down this year, you would have just gone like flags fly forever? Or would it be more appealing to you to try to risk holding a bit of that future value and try to really build a sustainable winner? Or is that almost sort of a fallacy in a very competitive dynasty league that you can establish a 3 to 4 year champion?
I wish you would have said that when we were going through the decision-making process. But yeah, I think as a first year in the league, it was a little bit more like, we're going to build the juggernaut. We're going to just like slow and steady and just have that kind of over time. We're less concerned about this year. I'm guessing that if I had been in the league for 3 years and hadn't really cashed a couple times or something like that, and it's like saw an opportunity, I think it'd probably be more, like you said, kind of pushing in. And then I do think that even, like you say, I'm going to be in a position that my team is so good that I don't have to trade off these pieces. But even Matt Eddy, who has the best team this year, at least future value wise in some ways, he's still having to trade his future value with like a 6 or 7 point lead on the second place guy, right? So it's not like it's so good that you're going to just run away with it. So yeah, it kind of speaks to your point.
Now, I do want to just look at the Baseball Prospectus team, Brett Sayers' team, which at least the image you sent me had the highest future value. But a lot of that's tied up in just really high-end teenage prospects that are ranked highly. So like if you put yourself in the shoes of that team, where it's like clearly the best sort of prospect capital in the league, and pretty good current value too, are they obligated almost sort of heading into the offseason to consolidate some of that prospect talent and really make a push next year? Or would you be tempted to just look at all that talent and say, let's give it another year. I'll have a better idea of which of these guys are future superstars, which of them aren't. And I'll just have more information if I wait a little bit.
Yeah, not to give advice here to Brett, but I think he had such a huge lead. Just and to kind of put some actual dollar figures on it, he had a $375 value coming into the year, and the next closest was 305, 291, 287. So he basically had like a 25%, something like that, gap over those guys. Yeah, I would have at that one, and I'm not saying he wouldn't have done that had the season played out a little bit differently. I think he's kind of right outside the money right now, but he had some injuries to Garrett Cole and Corbin Burns. And I think that maybe those kind of changed his plans, my guess. And I had talked to him before. We actually almost had a deal for, it was Max Clark and Emmanuel Rodriguez for basically Machado, Rodon, and some other pieces before Jose Alvarado got suspended. So that was very close to getting done. And so I know that he was like in that mindset, but I just don't think the actual values worked out for him. So he kind of ended up just, I think, pushing it down a year.
Yeah, this is so fascinating to me. I love the idea of just kind of having an idea of in your dynasty league, especially if you only play in like a couple leagues, 3-4 leagues, just sort of knowing where each team is from both a current value standpoint and a future value standpoint. It's a lot of work, but I think it's very useful, especially if you're an active trader. Which is something you are and I am not, but we will get into a lot of good trade talk here in a second. But first, a message from our sponsor. Cash in on your MLB picks this season with Chalkboard. Simply choose more or less on your favorite player stats to win up to 5,000 times your money. For a limited time only, new players get $20 free with no deposit required. Yes, you heard that right. $20 free just on sign up. See why over 1 million fans have already locked in with Chalkboard to turn their sports knowledge into cold, hard cash. Whether you're locking in the perfect slip with alternate lines, using the cash out feature to take your money and run, or hammering the daily promos, today is your chance to win up to $40,000 on a single entry. Stop sitting on the sidelines and get into the game with Chalkboard Fantasy Sports, now available in 30 plus states. Download Chalkboard today and use promo code ROTOMLB. That's ROTOMLB and get $20 free with no deposit required. All right, back here with Brian Slack, and you can use code YouTube15 if you want to get 15% off a RotoWire subscription. We are talking a bunch of different kind of dynasty aspects, dynasty baseball aspects. Brian, for those who don't know, is a very accomplished high-stakes redraft player turned dynasty player, and so we're having a lot of fun talking about his foray into dynasty here. Brian, we're going to talk about how to drive up that franchise value. Can you explain what the up the ladder, down the ladder approach is that you've coined?
It's a phrase Dylan likes to remind me of every time we make a trade. Every time we make a trade that doesn't make any sense, he just kind of chalks it up to. I guess we're going one of the ways. I don't even know. Are we going up the ladder or down the ladder here? Please tell me. Yeah, it's just the idea is basically because you see these teams that they get into a mode where they're really trying to compete this year, and so all the trades kind of go in one direction. Mm-hmm. Or, conversely, you see the teams like they don't have a great team and you just expect these guys to constantly trade for like younger players, right? So those are those teams and you just feel like that direction is constant. And I think this approach is kind of just like it's a straddle of the line, kind of in the middle, always trying to focus on like creating opportunities to capitalize on value. And so I think that so kind of in essence, what that means is at any given moment, I'm looking to think like, if this person's a little low on this particular veteran or prospect, I'm hoping to get that guy. And then, obviously thinking that just because I haven't valued higher. And so that's kind of all it is being like, you might look up and the last two trades I made were all for like 30-year-olds, 33-year-olds. And then I make, two trades in a row that are basically for far away prospects or something like that, just because I see that that's kind of keeps us in the. It also keeps our team balanced, right? So like if I just make only trades where it's the veterans, then I lose that flexibility too. So I like to have a kind of like a, I don't know if like a pawn shop is the best analogy, but like an assortment, you know what I mean? I like having an assortment, like a market that anybody can come to. Oh, you're looking for some, I got some of this, you know, and it's like, come on over, let's talk a little bit. So I like to have that available as well.
Yeah, it's almost like you're, in theory, like each trade, you're kind of getting the player for like 80 cents, 85 cents on the dollar because of the other owners' incentives, or like their need for that specific player has led to that player being valued less by them than it would be just an average Dynasty League manager. And so you're swooping in, regardless of your need for that player, getting them for less than what you think is market value, and then that's upping your franchise value in the process.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. And there's a psychological, you know, it feels like, you know, you try to be kind of, you know, humble about it. It's not like trying to get like, you know, over on somebody, but there is a psychological component to where like, man, you know, somebody's kind of competing, or even if they're like in the middle, they're like, man, my third baseman is terrible. Like, and there is, you know, the line in Fight Club. He's just like, you know, no matter what happens, I got the futon thing taken care of. Right. And I'm like, that's what I'm thinking. Some people psychologically, there is that part about somebody's like, okay, no matter what, as they look at this deal, even if they're like, they're okay on it. Right. It's like, as long as I'm getting my third baseman, this is that part. Right. And obviously there are, you know, degrees there, but like, yeah, I think there's some of that. And it is, if you don't care about that in my shoes, then you're just like, great, give me some more future value.
Yeah. That's a great theoretical approach. Of course you need to have, the time and the desire to make those trades. Again, like not something I really do. I think the majority of the trades I've made the last like 2 to 3 years have just simply been the up the ladder trades. Like if I have a team that I'm trying to win some money with, like I'll address my needs. But basically if I'm not contending, I just don't do trades.
Yeah.
Just because I just don't feel like I have the time, and I don't think that's what I'm best at. Like I think I'm best in the draft. I'm best on picking up players off waivers. Like I'm better at those two things than I am at trading. So I try to do less trading. But as you talk about, you can't really keep up with the best teams. Like if you're trying to take down Matt Addy this year or Jesse Roach this year in Devil's Rejects, you can't really draft and hold your way to the top.
Yeah. With side note, I always do feel bad about like approaching you with trades, because I know you're just kind of like, I'm just going to kind of I'm going to ride this out. You know, you'll talk. You know, you're very obviously very friendly about it, but I get the sense it's more like you're just going to kind of keep the direction moving as it is. And as you were talking, also go ahead.
Well, I just like if I like when I make a bad trade in Dynasty leagues, I literally never forget about it. And like I remember the bad trades I've made in Dynasty leagues more than I remember the like leagues I've won, or like the players that were on those teams that I won, because I just remember about that time I traded, you know, Aaron Nola for Josh Donaldson or whatever. Like it's just like the type of thing that you just, every time I pull up the team that I made the horrible trade on, even like 5-6 years later, I think about the awful trade, and then it's just like, so I'm just, I mean, now I'm opening up to you about my insecurities.
You're very emotionally vulnerable right now. I appreciate that. I mean, I get that. I do get that. There are definitely some trades that kind of stick in my head as well. But I mean, as you and I have talked before about like just even the fab process and redraft, right? Like it's the same thing, you know, like, I can't believe I dropped this guy when I shouldn't have. Right. And I've kind of been of the mindset, because I'm not naturally like this, but you just got to power through it. You know, you just got to like, just volume it your way through it. And
but it's so much easier in redraft though, because then you just wipe your hands of that team after and it's like all you can do is win the league or not win the league, basically, right? Like if you fall short of your main event league, like it's not like, okay, well, yeah, at least I'm in good position for next year. Like, you know, you left it all out there, right? Like in Dynasty, like you are always reminded of your mistakes in future years because it still affects you.
Yeah, I guess that's a better point. Yeah, I don't know. I just try to just kind of keep plowing through, just oblivious, just going through it. But yeah, no,
I mean, I'm just venting. But yeah, much more people that play Dynasty are in the like to trade camp than the don't like to trade camp.
And just to put an extra fine point on it, is like it's almost like tough when you make 2 trades a year, like that's it. Like you kind of either just need to really go after it. You like, I made 20. It was one of the bad ones, but then you have like, okay, at least this, these couple were better. So yeah, I get it.
And that's like, honestly, like I complaining about like bad trades and stuff, but honestly, that's like the bigger reason is just, I don't have the time to do my due diligence on like a trade. Like I just don't have the time to go back and forth on a bunch of different offers and then not have something get done. But if I cut down my leagues this offseason, like I say I'm going to, then maybe I will have time in future years. So
James heading into 2026. I'm gonna write this down. All right.
What's the is the staying in between hack different from the up the ladder, down the ladder?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's just staying in between. And one other thing that I was thinking about kind of before we got off on that other tangent was like, obviously Dylan is great with prospects, but like, I am not going to, anytime you step into a dynasty league, this is what I'm thinking is like, how am I going to beat these guys? We got Baseball America, Baseball Protectors, like just really sharp prospect guys. It's like, okay, I'm going to step into this league and find better prospects. And you, obviously, I'm going to step in this league. I'm going to use James's list and find better prospects than James. That to me just doesn't sound like a good strategy. So I had to figure out a different way. And this is kind of what that is kind of the more of the trading and the more of the major league level type stuff. So yeah, that was kind of another kind of rationale for why this might be helpful. If you're the best prospect guy in your league, then, probably could go a completely different direction. So that said, it as we talked about, like straddling and finding the future value, the thing about staying in the middle or just to kind of convey this enough, if I haven't done that already, which is always a big concern of mine, is like if you're only focused on this year's players, if you're only kind of pushing in, right? Or if you're only rebuilding, there's just half the player pool that pretty much is off the table to you. I mean, actually, Tom Trudeau in our league does a good job of this actually, is he will, even though he's in a win now mode, most of his moves are so win now, but you'll see some moves that are like very kind of like future value driven too, but there is mainly for like trading for the guys, in the future. But I think being able to have all of those options available is kind of, for me, the most important part is not cutting off. And because when you're talking to somebody, you want the story to make sense. You want to see like, oh, this is why this guy would do this. This is, pitching is weak or whatever. Like any reason I would have other than like, I'm here only because I feel like I'm getting the best future value in our deal, right? That's not a great way to like step into a negotiation. And so there's got to be some sincerity to it, which is like, all right, I actually do think, we were in, like I said, 3rd or 4th at one point. I was like, look, we could have used some, outfield depth or whatever. And so then, it kind of just goes from there. So anyway, staying in between is kind of the same thing as the up the ladder, down the ladder, keeping all the options open.
What have been your, like, have you made any prospect pickups that you have liked, or have you made any prospect pickups and then dropped them that you've regretted, or like any prospects you almost grabbed that you wish you'd grabbed and then someone grabbed them right after you? Like what's been your experience on this sort of like first come first serve? I know you said like trades have been the way to get the prospects, but how's this first year been for you, just in you can go get anyone at any time in this league?
It's been a blessing and a curse. I think because you don't, so it kind of fits my schedule, this format, because I have like, my daughter's and, she's 7, she's all kinds of, obligations. And so I'm not locked in on Sundays to do fab and all that stuff. And so that's kind of helpful. On the flip side, I'm kind of constantly always evaluating who's my worst player. If I had to drop somebody right now, who would it be? Because at any given moment, I will get a text from Dylan in all caps with a prospect name I've never heard of. And I'm going to go immediately pick him up. Dylan doesn't even check the league. He's like, if he's available, go grab him. So I'll get all caps, Bo Davidson, right? No context, no nothing, just the all caps. And so I have to go pick it up. And then of course, the response text is like, give me a name to drop. always in the all caps. So. This is much behind the curtain, but yeah. So I like it. I mean, I say I like it. If I had my druthers, I would say that I would do a Sunday fab, but yeah, first come first serve is also crazy because you see like it's crazy. Like you'll see because it's any moment. So the Reds games were happening early in the year, right? And all of a sudden you see Tony Santillan in the 8th. I was like, well, all right, picking up Emilio Pagan right now, and so you just do it in the moment. And so since I'm usually kind of mainlining the games anyway, it was kind of quick. So that's the general feel of how I've dealt with the first come first serve. How have you dealt with it?
Well, yeah, Eno and I are kind of always sort of doing the same thing, like just asking each other for drops, like. Because like I'm sort of in charge of which prospects we hold, and he's in charge of which big leaguers we hold. And so like if there's a prospect I want to add, but I don't want to drop any of our prospects, then I got to ask him for a big leaguer to drop, and then sort of vice versa. If there's a big leaguer he wants to pick up, we just got scooped on Lats the other day. Eno's high on Lats, Jacob Lats with the Rangers, and I guess we were just asleep at the wheel, and like we're pissed that we got scooped on someone grabbing Lats. But yeah, I mean that's just kind of the way it goes. We're not as on top of it as you are, I don't think.
Let's see. Yeah, it's tough too when you see that name. Like he didn't quite realize he was out there, and yeah, Jacob Lats is another one that has come through the team and off the team. But who are you talking about? Yeah, good ones. Yeah, other than like my favorite pickups probably this year were Emil Morales. Like he was out there, got him, and then Peyton Tolley. All right,
yeah.
We got him. I'm gonna take zero credit for this. It's like basically Dylan. I surprised him on this one because I listened to his podcast one time, one single time, and he had mentioned that there was like a velo bump early in the year, so we picked him up. And it was crazy. Like he was not tradable even as he was kind of ascending. The pitching prospects in this league. And so I kind of have to factor in, this took some refiguring on my overall values, is like, you just see everybody, there's 20 teams in the league. There's 15 of them that want the exact same thing, which is close to the majors batters or young batters, right? They're not interested in any pitching prospects, any major league, pitching. It's like, so you have to, when I calculate that future value, there's a lot of like a trade value component to it, right? I can't just look, or else I'll be so heavily weighted on pitchers or what have you that like, yeah, my values won't be reflective of like what's going on. So,
right. Yeah. And that like, so for my top 100 prospect rankings, YouTube 15 for 50% off if you want to get those. But every time I do an update, I'll sync obviously with Devil's Rejects, like I do the rest of my Dynasty leagues, see who the best available prospects are. And, without fail, the top 10 or so are just all pitching prospects, because nobody wants them. Like we've got Tanner McDougal, who I really like with the White Sox. There's no way Eno's going to let me keep Tanner McDougal this offseason. So it's just kind of like there's so many pitching prospects available in our league that I like, but because of the specifics of the league where you're only keeping 28 players, including big leaguers, it's tough to make a case for keeping a pitching prospect with one of those 28 spots. So I always say this about like the top 400, but like you should be using it as a tool for your specific leagues. Like it's not just grab the best player or the highest ranked player. It's sort of grab the best player for your specific league. So the pitching prospect aspect of our league it's wild, but I also think like in the case of Tolley, I think it's a market inefficiency, because really all the best pitching prospects at some point were available in this league for much less than they would be in a typical Dynasty league. It's not until they're basically right on the cusp of getting the call of the big leagues that people start valuing them appropriately.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely the double A and probably the double A hitters, right? All the 18, 19, 20-year-olds, like all those guys are just like so compared to like, I don't know if you want to call it like industry-wide lists, they're just so hard to extract from other people. Like you don't see them in traded, like anybody that has hitter in that range, it's like they're really attached to him. So, kind of factoring that in. So,
what's the Troy Aikman rookie card story?
So this was, I was in junior high and dating myself. People like Troy Aikman, the announcer. I was like, no, he played football at one point. He had these 80, I think it's 89 score. Now I'm messing up the story. Anyway, John Stadmuller, if you've ever been to a baseball card show, he had all of them individually cased, right? And then displayed just like, 30 or 40 Troy Aikman cards. He had an index card. It was folded over, said, selling $40, buying $38, right? And I was young and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. What is this guy's, what's he doing? Like trying to make $2 per card? And so I thought about it. And then, shortly, at some point later, it kind of dawned on me. I was like, first of all, just the idea that he would be willing to buy and sell. It's like, okay, that shows you kind of just like in between kind of type of thinking. But then I realized like it hit me. It's really disarming is what he was doing. He was disarming anybody that wanted to come in here and say, oh, 40 is outrageous. I was like, oh yeah, then I'll buy yours for 38, and of course nobody would do that because it was a hot card at the time. And that always kind of stuck with me. I'm sure they're, again, better, like, this is not like a Harvard Business School type of example, but like, it's the thing that like stuck with me. And I think when you kind of think about like trading and how I see that manifest in like our league, for example, we had Marcell Ozuna at one point, 34 years old, just coming off a very nice season. The guy with Jose Altuve, right? Also 34 years old. I believe that's right. But very, getting up there is the point. And like, he might have just been trying to get a good deal, but he was trying to kind of beat me down a little bit on Ozuna. And I was like, well, if that's the case, if that's your view on, aging players, what's the price on Altuve, And then all of a sudden it's like Altuve is, amazing. And like in a different class. And it's a very delicate line. Like I actually am doing it, if I'm being completely honest, mostly sincerely, but there's a little part of me that's like, you're logically inconsistent right now. But the main thing, you can't do it like in the general trade negotiation kind of thing is like, you want to be, sincere in this approach, which is like, you're trying to get a deal done. You're not trying to like prove somebody wrong. Right. Mm-hmm. But I was like, in all seriousness, if he was low enough on Altuve and it really was an old guy thing, then I was definitely in the market for Altuve. So I think that kind of goes to, the idea, like I'm a buyer at this or I'm a seller at that, and so everybody kind of has a price and sometimes it's high, but my asking price, but there's always a price for pretty much everybody, for on my spot.
Yeah. You're very pleasant to talk trade with, Brian. We've had lots of good trade talks, nothing that's led to anything, but I never regret our trade talks.
Soon we'll get something.
Soon I will.
Yeah, soon. Yeah, soon you'll regret them. Yeah. That's right. That's actually more accurate. Uh-huh.
Should we talk about the Gunnar trade?
Yeah, that was just something. I mean, look, I kind of hinted at this before. I got like a lot of parenting obligations and stuff like that. So I'll be at like my daughter's gymnastics class, just like rolling over theory ideas in my head, and one of them was this idea, because I think people get in and they want to make this move. They want their like cornerstone piece and you lock it in, right? It's this young, it's Gunnar, it's the great, like a top 5. And those guys are not usually available for trade. So it's actually kind of difficult. It kind of goes back to the auction values. Like I put the auction value there, but that's not really reflective of what it would take to get them. But I gave up, just so it's kind of out there, Lindor, Machado, Rodon, Robbie Ray. And then this was the part that hurts because he wasn't as good at this point, but it was Michael Busch. And that last little kicker, I was like, I had the other ones, but this was the last kicker. So that actually does sting. But the point was all of that for Gunnar, right? And that was just what it was going to take to get him. That's just the market. There was no other top 10 dynasty asset that was there. Like you said, roster spots are limited. I wanted space to spec on guys like, Bo Davidson. And so I was like, I made the trade, but the idea is that when you give up so much like that, it's not really a deal like, oh, I'm going to flip Gunnar for something more, right? Or that's, kind of going back to the general thought process is like, I'll eventually get guys that are going to be, I can hopefully get and package elsewhere and keep driving up that future value. This is one of those, like, I need an anchor. I'm going to put it there. And then you kind of look at like what your future value would be. If Gunnar is 25% of that or 20% of that, right? Like, and that's just a kind of a stationary, not describing this very well at all, just it's stuck. You can't move it, right? Then kind of extrapolating that out, like if your whole roster is like that, you couldn't do anything to increase your value. So you need those pieces. You kind of need all of your roster available as things that you can piece together to run up your future value. So when you do something like that, it takes a big chunk and makes it untradeable, and therefore makes a lot of different combinations of trades harder to pull off. So do I regret it? It's close. I mean, I think the Michael Bush part really, like, that said, if you ask me to undo it right now, I don't know if I would, because I think that the roster spots are limited. It's close. It's honestly pretty close. What do you think? Should I undo it or not? Matt Eddies would be like, no, not at all.
I think I probably would undo it. But I mean, it's so hard to say as someone that's not involved with it. I mean, it's almost like the cost is almost prohibitive on those guys, because of like everything you've said about the league. It almost just kind of seems that the very best young players might be a little overvalued, and like the very best old players might be a little undervalued. But Gunnar is now, going into the year, he was like a top 6 or 7 pick when he was healthy. And now I got him at the 15-16 turn in the too early meatball draft. So,
great pick.
Yeah, you like that?
I like that pick. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, obviously it's, his I think like Lindor and him basically go in the exact same spot in like redraft. And I love Machado. The pitchers, whatever. And then Bush, I mean, it sucks because it's OBP and he's looking like he's going to have another 2-3 years of OBP awesomeness. But I mean, the 20-team aspect is tough. Like if it's a 12-team league, I do it all day. Like I do it every day. 15-team league, I probably do it every day. 20 teams, it's just you get a little deeper, just makes it that much harder to kind of make up that value you gave away in those 4 roster spots. But I think it's a classic dynasty trade. Like that is kind of what a Gunnar Henderson package would look like, I think, in most leagues.
Yeah, that's harsh but fair. It's probably right. Honestly, it's probably right. But I mean, at least kind of at the end of the day, it's like I got a pretty, an asset that I feel, good and happy about, but it was probably a little much. Let's be honest. It was probably a little much, especially because at the time, I think some of that, because I'm kind of constantly working the phones a little bit, is like some of that was the trade value for Bush wasn't what his actual value was. I had run up against several, because we had a kind of a glut of first baseman and just was getting no traction on Bush. And so I was like, you know what, if his trade value is this, then, maybe that's kind of into it, kind of what it is. But yeah, and it was definitely a lot. So anyway, that was even the specifics of that trade, notwithstanding. I think the idea is that, like, in addition to all of that, the fact that now I can't, flip Lindor for like 2 other good pieces, right? Or Lindor plus something for another nice piece that's not quite as nice as Gunnar. I think that having that optionality taken off the table is there's a value to that, and I miss it.
Right, like you increase your franchise value if you deal all those pieces like individually, probably. But also, like, getting the best player on our roster is Junior Caminero, I would think. Like what type of Godfather package would it even take for and I to have any sort of serious discussions about trading Caminero, right? Like it would need to, someone would have to come in with like a monster offer like that to even get us talking about it. So
yeah.
Okay, Brian, you want to break down Dax Kilby for me?
Yeah. Oh my. Well, so I actually saved it because I can't remember who I said is like one of my favorite pickups. Yeah, Emil Morales. But really, my favorite pickup for sure was Dax Kilby. So
Yankees shortstop prospect who they took, I think, number 39 overall or something like that in this past draft, off to a great start.
Yeah, something like that. He was a guy that had I guess they call it the combine, right? Where they have the little 2 or 3 day deal. Is it called the combine?
The combine, yep.
Yeah, this is how in the know I am.
You're a fantasy football player. You should know that.
That's right. I didn't want to mix it up. That's clearly what happened. I was like, is it called the same thing? Please tell me it's called the same thing. Anyway, obviously this is I take no credit here, but Dylan was like, I like this guy. I was like, let's take it. Let's pick him up now. He's like, no, he might, I guess, go to like Clemson or something like that. So we watched him, and then he got drafted by the Yankees, and I was just most of my moves. I didn't even think, I told him vaguely about the Gunnar move, but he lets me do all the trades. So I do, most of the trades come as a surprise to him. But then the Yankees pick him, and I'm watching the draft. And this is the crazy part about the first come, first serve. I just grabbed him. Can't remember who I dropped. So very just acting quickly on that. And then, so far he's got it's only 18 games in low A, but he's got a 159 WRC plus, more walks and strikeouts, and the StatCast stuff. He's 18 years old. StatCast stuff. It's like a 109 max EV, 108.9 max EV.
Mm-hmm.
All the StatCast stuff has got me
like 106, like 90th percentile. Can you guess? So Dax Kilby's had 81 plate appearances this year, Brian. How many of those 81 do you think he was older than the pitcher he was facing?
Zero would be my guess.
Just one.
One? Okay. You always aim a little higher when somebody does that. Yeah.
I mean, like that. Not that that's like unusual for a teenager to be mostly younger, but like for a guy to just clearly be one of the best hitters in the league, and be one of the youngest hitters in the league. 16 steals in 18 games for Dax Kilby. 16 at 17 on those. So yeah, I mean, like you could like nitpick on just sort of the launch angle and stuff if you really wanted to, but I mean, all signs pointing up to me.
Yeah, I don't know because you're attached to them, right? But like some of these guys, like I don't know what it's going to be like in the off season as the buzz gets going on the FYPD stuff. I see, a lot of reason to have him like, I don't know, top 5. I know that's going to sound however it sounds, but like, yeah, I don't know. Some of these other guys, maybe like Holiday and Willits I'd trade him for, maybe JoJo Parker. Obviously some pitchers in there that are pretty good, but yeah. And
it'll be so fascinating with so JoJo Parker and Steele Hall, the Reds and Blue Jays first round picks, Steele Hall to the Reds, JoJo Parker to the Blue Jays, but those guys didn't get into any official games, whereas Dax Kilby did. So like I had Parker and Hall and Holiday and Willits and many others ahead of Kilby, like initially, but then it's, we're going to get into offseason rankings and stuff. And like, what is the argument for having Steele Hall ahead of Dax Kilby still? Like, is there an argument? Like, there might not be that much of an argument if we've got all this data on Kilby and it's basically all the same stuff Steele Hall is supposed to be able to do, and we don't have any data on him. So yeah, I think like it's just going to be a steady rise for Kilby throughout the offseason as each big set of prospect rankings get released and everything. And yeah, so I think that's an asset that's going to trend up for you.
I like where your head is. I love this. I love this encouragement. It's great.
Okay, so go ahead.
I mean, like just while we're on it, like Holiday, right? Like he's not striking out quite a bit right now. Like, does that is that going to drop him at all for you? Are you going to still be like we're going with like the pedigree and the prospect reports, and we're just going to kind of write some of this stuff off, or is it close enough? I guess it's actually the season's over, right? Or are they still Holidays? Is
for those guys, it's over.
Yeah. Okay. Is putting those guys close together, is that too far of a bridge too far?
No, and Ethan Holiday is just he's such a tough player to rank, I think. like the power's obviously there, like the bloodlines are there. He's just a physical specimen. I think he's even more kind of fiery than Jackson. But he's just, he's not going to run. So you're taking one category off the table right away, and no faith, obviously, in the Rockies to maximize him, but he's also going to have more advantages than almost any other prospect that the Rockies could take in terms of being able to work in the offseason with former big leaguers. So I'm not going to feel good no matter where I rank Ethan Holiday. I'm not going to feel good about it. Like it's going to feel too high or it's going to feel too low. And then with like Kilby, it's like, does it make logical sense to move a player from like 200 to 50th based on 81 plate appearances? Like, I don't know. So those are,
it's tough. It's a tough, not to kind of put myself in your shoes here, but like when I did my values, right. It's just me, so I did, we'll get to this player in a second. Lars Nootbaar, like in 2 months in, I had him like way high. Like I didn't even talk. He was the guy I was least excited to talk about in a trade, right? I was like, I'm so high on him. Like, it doesn't matter, but you have like kind of a public facing list, right? That like, oh man, it makes it a little bit tougher. You can't be like, whereas, if it were me, I might just be like, you know what? It's low enough to where I'm going to like let somebody else take a Holiday and, take Kilby or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. And I don't like having, or I don't like, like people in this league all the time, like will just offer me blind trades after I release my dynasty rankings. And it's just like, well, you had this guy higher. It's like, well, I don't like, that's almost basically a non-starter. If that's your rationale for reaching out, is that my dynasty rankings got updated. Like it feels kind of dirty almost. And then I don't even feel strong enough about a lot of my dynasty rankings to just trade off of them. Right. Like it's sort of, it's more likely that I ranked a guy too high or too low and the person's offering a trade because of that than it is that I nailed the ranking. Right. So, to anyone who's in any leagues with me, if you send me an offer based off of a recent update of mine, I probably will just decline it.
Public service announcement.
So Lars Nootbaar, you mentioned, and I was just kind of like, why do you want to talk about Lars Nootbaar? He's basically been the exact same player for the last 4 years, where he just plays between 100 and 130 games and walks a ton. And there's good under the hood stuff that never really comes to fruition. So what's so great about Lars Nootbaar?
I think that's a great question. And I really rammed, like I said, I jammed him up in the auction values a couple months in. I was like, he's leading off, great OPP, nice max EV, barrel rate, all the things. And I was like, this guy's going to be great. Like it's finally coming together. And he'd had an issue with, kind of a near 50% ground ball rate for a while. I got that down to like 30. I think it even is still around 30, 35%. And I was like, this is kind of it. He's going to be this player he's 27, which, kind of going back to the league dynamics, like you try and trade somebody over 30, that's not going to work, in this league. And then, it was the sweet spot for like, if this is actually materializing, I was like, this is an elite, borderline elite asset. And that is very strong for what he kind of might be, which is, like you said, constantly kind of injured a little bit. The power's not as great. The barrel rate has kind of come down kind of a little bit more. Like it looks like last year was maybe a little bit more outlierish. And I think it's around maybe 10% right now. And yeah, I mean, I think I see you with him around like, can we talk about your dynasty ranks? I'd probably still have him closer to like the, mid 200s of, maybe something like what I would consider like a $6 guy. And I think if I, on my evaluation system, you might have him closer to like a $3 guy. Sure. I think he's okay. And maybe it's just that the ceiling isn't, he might just, and this is kind of what your point was, is like, he might just be this, and it seems increasingly likely. Yeah. So
he's someone, has been trying to trade for him. Like, was it this past offseason or the offseason before? Like he was really trying to get Nootbaar in this league. So So it's not like, I haven't seen the appeal in the past. It's kind of like I've been investing in Nootbaar for a while, and it's kind of just been the same thing. But the dip in the ground ball rate is definitely worth mentioning, because he was like 52% 2024, 50% 2023. So the fact he's 37% now, that's significant. The barrel rate's the exact same, basically, as you said, which is annoying, but the launch angle is much more in line with where you want it to be. So, I don't know, it wouldn't be the craziest thing because next year will be the first year where I think everyone just expects Nootbaar to play against righties and lefties, right? Or do you think he just sits against lefties again early next year?
I mean, my hope was that he would keep playing, but even with that, I think that the ceiling is, like I said, maybe a little more capped. But yeah, I feel like was good enough to bet against both handedness, but I haven't checked that recently.
So Nootbaar, probably an example of someone I've got ranked too low. What about Josh Lowe, who that 2023 season just doing really kind of all the lifting there. And we are now looking at back-to-back years of essentially the same production, although he has cut his strikeouts this year. So are you just kind of betting that we're never going to see a year like 2023 again from Josh Lowe?
I think so. Like you said, it's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. For the record, like all of these guys so far have been on our squad, Dylan and I, mine and Dylan's squad. So it's like, as you think about these guys, it's like, how open am I to trading them? What is kind of the outlook for them? With Lowe, like his ground ball rate has been going up over the season, and last 40 games, it's around like 50%. The walks, it's not like an elite, it's 7% walks, 25% strikeout, 6.3% barrel rate in the second half, 40% O swing, chasing a lot, not making a lot of contact in the zone, 76% contact in the zone, bat speeds down a mile an hour. He did it home run yesterday, steals some bases. I feel like I would actually ask, I don't know the research on this because I've kind of been tuned out, but like this should have been a more advantageous park situation.
Right.
And next year, if that's different, like what that looks like, maybe he'll be 28 as we head into next year. So yeah, I'm okay with him. I think I would probably take him barely above Nootbaar. Like I would be pretty close, but I would forced to get rid of one on roster cut. It would not come to that, but I would slightly choose Lowe.
Yeah, this seemed like to me a good year to get back in on Lowe because of the park. Like I drafted as many Rays as I could this year, basically. He did not capitalize, and yeah, like you said, this is 28 next year. Still sits against some lefties, and I mean it's the speed is driving the profile for sure with Lowe. And if we're probably looking at back-to-back years of under 15 homers, back-to-back years probably of under 50 RBI. We're looking at back-to-back years probably of under 65 runs, despite the fact he bats at the top of the lineup. So yeah, I mean, I could see why you might be a little cooler on Lowe than you were before the year.
Yeah, it saddens me. He's fine. He's good. He's fine. It's obviously, it's a guy that, like, as with everything, right? Like if there's somebody that's a little bit more intrigued by it, or, ideally somebody that's a little bit more like feels like they're entering 2026 light on speed, light on outfield, right? And they see this like not old asset that's putting up pretty good numbers. Mm-hmm. The OBP in the past, what is it? 200 games is around like what 303. OBP. Like some of that's BABIP this year. Like this is his lowest BABIP at 291. Maybe that comes up a little bit, but even projections are maybe like 310 to 315 OBP. And yeah, I just continue to want to hear myself talk. But like when I do those rankings, like OBP, this is such a competitive league. And I think Matt Eddy right now is at like 187 points out of 200. And when I entered this year, I looked at the Tom Trudeau and Jordan, they had their team at around 190, which I only say that like it's such a thin line, it's such a high bar to get all those points. Like you cannot, it's almost too tough to do with like just a middling OBP. Like you kind of want to like, you have to be really strong in everything. So because of that, I actually had, and still, well, I don't know if most people do, but like Soto was my number one guy just for the OBP component to it. So I had him as like the highest ranked guy and really emphasize OBP in my like auction values just because of, you know, how much they're worth and how difficult it is to trade for OBP. So anyway, that goes to Josh Lowe a little bit.
Eno and I have been sort of, we haven't been like competitive the last couple of years, but we've been loosely punting OBP the last couple of years out of just circumstances. Basically, like we just didn't have that much OBP, and like you said, you can't really trade for OBP in this thing. So just got a lot of got Joe Adele, got Junior Caminero, Ozzy Albies on the punt OBP squad. Yeah. Luke Keyshaw.
You got the reinforcements coming. You got some good ones coming up
though. So I wanted to get your take on Cam Smith, who has been a very challenging player, I think, to value basically throughout the year, because he, you know, you could compare him to like all the college hitters in last year's draft class. You know, like I'm sure there are people in dynasty leagues that would easily take JJ Weatherholt over Cam Smith right now. Might even take like Travis Bazzano over Cam Smith right now, even though those guys are still in the minor leagues, just because they haven't come up and spent a full year in the majors with underwhelming stats. You know, obviously I would take Nick Kurtz over Cam Smith. I think most people would take like Jack Caglione over Cam Smith, even though Smith's probably been better than Cags in the big leagues. So like how do you go about sort of valuing a player like Cam Smith? You know, forget the trade aspect part, but like just looking at the circumstances and how kind of unique they are relative to his peers, like how much of a mulligan would you give a player like that based off of their first year in the big leagues?
I still would be in, you know, I'd like him more than the guys we've mentioned so far, but not by like a huge amount. But yeah, I probably want to do a lot of reading on like what you have to say about it. But yeah, I mean, I like, you know, a lot of that. He had a really good May and June with a near 400 BABIP, you know, so that drove what looked like, oh, this is some kind of like breakout, you know. In the second half, it's been, you know, 30% K rate, right? 8% walk rate. But, you know, 31% O swing isn't bad. 81% Z contact is okay. You know, it's like on the year, it's a 6.9% barrel rate. The bat speed is good. You know, 74 mile an hour bat speed. And then 113.9 max EV. It's like right now I'm not too worried about like kind of because he seems like he's platooning a little bit now.
He's lost out on a lot of playing time since the trade deadline.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not, you know, long-term too worried about that. Yeah, it kind of would be one of those things about like just a game of adjustments. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure that he had some success and, you know, there was some adjusting back, and long term I'd still be pretty excited. I was surprised when I looked into him that how the speed component, right? Like pretty good sprint speed, 8 of 9 on the bases, like still a good pedigree pick. And yeah, so I'd be pretty. The thing is, who has him, the person who has him, at least in our league, is, you know, less likely to give him, you know, part with him. But yeah, he'd be a guy I'd be fairly interested in. How about you? Are you more concerned about?
Yeah, so I'm excited about potentially liking his 2026 redraft ADP. I have no idea where it's going to be. Like I might not like it, but I think redraft players would tend to punish a guy like this pretty substantially for just a full season of kind of mediocrity. And I think they would value that much more than any sort of contextual reasons for the struggles. But if he's getting drafted, I'm trying to think like what a good range for him in redraft would be that I would like. I mean, if he was going around like pick 300, like, is that crazy that he might go that low?
No, yeah, it seems like maybe he might have gone a little bit higher, but I'm pretty detached from it.
I know. Oh, I know.
Yeah, but I mean, like I would be in at the 20th round on some of that. Yeah.
So yeah, and with him, obviously Houston, they were aggressive with assigning him like to the big league roster, right? And they didn't back off that. They never demoted him. And so there's also like the element of, was that all good for his development? Like, did that interrupt anything developmentally, that they were just kind of pushing him that quickly? But yeah, I think generally he's potentially a good buy low, although I probably got him ranked even higher than I value him currently myself. So maybe not a good buy low if people are looking at my rankings, but yeah, just Cam Smith to me, like you were asking for like challenging players to value in dynasty leagues, and to me he's maybe the most challenging, just because like a really strong first 2 months next year, and he's just a elite asset, and a really poor first 2 months next year, and I think the value just really kind of dips. So I'm interested in what projection systems say about him for sure. But yeah, just a challenging player to value, I think.
Yeah, I get it.
What did you notice about George Lombard, who is another player that I find challenging to rank? Still a prospect, obviously, but you wanted to discuss him when I brought him up.
Yeah, the guy with Lombard in our league is in 4th place, I think. And, kind of his asking price has always been very, very, very high. Borderline obscenely high. And it's fair, right? Sometimes you get a guy like my Kilby price would be too high for anybody. So I'm not like judging it, but I do like him. And Dylan is like, no, why are you trying to target him? I think I just, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, he was doing well and then got the promotion to AA and struggled. The last month has been like pretty good. Like, it's like a 141 WRC plus, 16% walk rate, 373 OBP. The power is like, there's some good like max EV stuff, EV90 stuff, but I think I'm not sure. It's like but the home runs haven't been there. And so it's like, okay, he's still just turned 20, room to grow into some more power. And the scout speak or the coach speak, all that stuff is pretty high. I think I'm probably a sucker for that, which is, Dylan would not even understand what that is. So he like, this is not too excited about it. So, long story short, I don't think I'll get him in our league, but I was like, I like this guy.
Yeah, I think Lombard is it's just the power, it's the game power. Like, it's going to come, but like how much of it's going to come, and that sort of determines whether he's a buy or not. But I think the batted ball profile has been great. Like, even though the balls haven't left the yard as much as people maybe have hoped, but ground ball rate under 40% at AA, 45% pull rate at AA, 22 steals on 25 attempts.
Not bad.
And, I think most scouts say he's just a lock to stick at shortstop. So that's useful too. But yeah, like he's always been one of the youngest players, if not the youngest player in his leagues. So I think he deserves kind of a bit of a benefit of the doubt, sort of along the lines of Cam Smith as well. But just that sort of Yankees shortstop, he's probably in most cases not at an affordable acquisition price in dynasty leagues.
Yeah, I at least in ours, I can agree with that. And before I feel too bad after this, obviously Dylan very well. He's extremely rational and would not be like hard in or hard out on any one player. But that's just every time I try to get it, it's always kind of funny. It's like, why am I trying to come up with
Dylan and I have talked about George Lombard a lot offline as well. I feel like I've been like, I've probably been quite a bit higher on him than Dylan at certain points. And he's always sort of like asking me to sort of explain what I like. But yeah, like I think.
So you understand. You understand where I'm coming from. I did
think
not realize. I did not
visually, I've always told Dylan that I think like visually Lombard's home run swing looks a lot like Jordan Lawler's home run swing, but I don't know if that is a question at this point.
Did that damage your case? Yeah. See.
Okay. So Kyle Manzardo, he's no longer a platoon bat. Maybe coming into his own. You think a player to potentially buy this offseason?
He has a 724 OPS versus lefties, so it's not terrible. He is still like annoyingly in. They've had a lot of righties for the last month or so, or at least kind of obscured that he has sat against a few of the lefties. So maybe that changes next year. You got to hope that it does. In our league, because it's weekly lineups, like the platoon guys, and goes back to my Michael Bush, like my willingness, over willingness to part with him was like, man, it's just tough. There were so many times where you're just like, you got 2 lefties this week. It's basically 4 or 5 games and what have you. If that sticks, it really dings the platoon bats quite a bit. So, but like the trends are looking up. You know, the Z contact is up throughout the year. Now he's like over 88%, like just making like, making more contact in the zone. The walk rate dropped in the middle of the season, but now in the last 40 games, it's above 10%. Second half barrel rate of 13.5%. And the lefties that it's not putrid is at least some cause for optimism. And so pretty hopeful, more hopeful than excited if there's a difference there. Excited would be like, all right, this is going to happen. But I was like, man, if it does, and it looks like he's really locked in, and he was to begin the season playing against lefties, if my memory is not fooling me again. But I think that he's looks really could be very solid. So yeah, I'm kind of excited about him.
Yeah, I mean he could be kind of mild or Michael Bush-esque. I know he started 2 of their 3 games against lefties since rosters expanded, which obviously isn't enough to be a trend, but at least they didn't just immediately sit him down against the lefties once they got an extra bench bat. So I like that as just a guy that really hasn't been talked about that much this year. And yeah, it's been a pretty productive year for him, especially in I think long term, I like him more in OBP leagues than batting average leagues. But then Ryan Pepiot, our last guy. I think Pepiot is a great buy heading into the offseason. Sounds like you agree with me.
Talk him up. I hope so. I think that, I guess I've said the same thing about all these guys. It's like, I think I had visions of dollar signs in my eyes when we got him in a trade, right? I was like, look, he got a really good fastball, good foundation of a nice fastball. Nice. I was like really into like the stuff plus numbers on him. And, the park might be a little bit tricky. I think he just got scratched today or yesterday with fatigue, general fatigue. I think we're all tired. The Sierra, some of the stuff hasn't been trending exceptionally well. It's like, middling Z contact, first pitch strike is down like 57%, 11.4% swinging strike. And on the year, he's got a Sierra over 4. So like nothing's going to jump off and like make him extremely attractive, but I'm not really a guy that I'm looking to move off of. Cause I think that like some of the stuff that's there, it could, I don't have a lot of basis for this. It just feels like a little bit more kind of the lower end of his outcomes. You know what I mean? Like I still feel like a lot of the components that were likable to start the year are still there. And maybe it's just going to kind of correct itself. And even if he's like just a very solid, what ended up being like, third pitcher on our staff, I'd be pretty okay with it.
Yeah. I think just the park isn't going to be worse next year. I love that I liked him coming into the year. I mean, he's been fine. He hasn't been like quite the home run that I hoped he would be, but I do think some of that's the park. And I just love that even if they just shut him down today for the rest of the year, he still got up to 163 innings after his previous career high being 130. So it's kind of in that range where I would be sort of leaning towards dialing him back anyways. And then next year, you hope that he just gets up to 180. And, I think the strikeout rate can tick back up a tiny bit maybe. But yeah, I just like I like the age range. I like the contextual upgrade potentially next year. Should just be a better Rays team all around next year too. So yeah, I like
it's encouraging. I like this. I like this. So that's a guy I'm probably pretty not going to be trying to actively, because I just don't think that where I'll have him valued, as we're kind of talking about here, is going to be, maybe there's somebody that values him a little more highly, but my guess is that he'll be on our squad as we enter the year. So, and it's funny, I'll kind of close it with I don't know if you remember, in Vegas, I saw you in Vegas, and I was like, I think I'd made at that point probably 5 or 6 trades already, right? I was like, James, listen to me. I'm serious. I'm just gonna be a grab and hold guy. I'm just gonna hold these guys. I'm not gonna do a trade. You'd be surprised. Maybe 1 or 2 trades all year. So, and I really, honestly, I meant it. I was very sincere in that moment. And there is part of me, despite all I've just talked about today, that's enjoying it more, because all the other Dynasty leagues, I've kind of had a little bit more of that play to win mentality. And obviously that's still very strong in this environment in this league. But there is a part of me that's going to kind of enjoy, that has enjoyed just riding some of these guys and just following them along a little bit more of more of a fan a little bit. So we'll see, especially now that we have Gunnar and I'm kind of in this spot. We might be a little bit less trading oriented moving forward.
Well, it's been a lot of fun having you in the league. And are you still just retired indefinitely from non-football high stakes events?
We'll see. I think more likely than entering last year, and I usually try to make that decision pretty early because of the prep that I want to do, but I feel like I don't know if it's a silver lining, but because I've been at least following this league pretty closely, and some of the stuff, when you step away for a year, a lot of this just, even the bat speed stuff, I had missed that kind of here's what bat speed means, right? Or the revolution of how to incorporate that into projections and all that stuff. And just some stuff about my redraft game, right? That I would be really wanting to improve on if I was going to step back in. So in other words, I feel like I've lost a step, but we have an auction that we have shared. It's me and Dylan and Jordan Rosenblum. And so that's been fun. And so maybe we'll do something like that again.
Awesome, man. Well, this has been a blast. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule, and good luck with your football teams this year, man.
Thank you very much. I will keep you posted. It's long overdue. I'm glad to have made it on.
Awesome. Well, this has been the RotoWire Prospect Podcast, brought to you by the Chalkboard app, and use that code YouTube15 if you want to get 15% off a RotoWire subscription.